It's time to get nerdy, y'all.
A little bit of gaming history for you.
Something relevant in gaming and discuss our opinions on it.
Should we kick it out of here, or should we kick-start it?
This is the part where you, the listeners, try to stump the hosts.
I'm not a lawyer. I just play one on a podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, lads and lasses of all ages, welcome to the show. It is Tuesday, October 15th, 2024, and it's time to get nerdy. Welcome to episode 321 of Two Nerds in a Pod, the nerdiest gaming podcast in the multiverse. I am one of your hosts, Maction, and I am joined by my co-host, my co-signer on all the loans, and my fellow in podcasting crimes, Mr. Lam Galuka, also known as Mr. Nice Guy 425. Yes, he is the mastermind to any FBI agents listening. But for the next hour, we're not talking about crimes, we're talking about video games in all the various ways. Gaming news, history, trivia, lawsuits, and everything in between. But first, Mr. Nice Guy, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. So much untrue was said during that intro. Definitely not co-signing any loans with Mac.
What?
Definitely not committing any crimes. And definitely not a mastermind. So, trifecta of dishonesty to start the show. But I am doing very, very well, Mac. And, you know, I got to tell you about this past week because it was awesome. It was just awesome. So, you know, suburban dad stuff. We won't spend too much time talking about that. Soccer games and barbecue, cooked some ribs this weekend, all the stuff that suburban dads do as they near middle age. But probably the highlight of my past week was my kid's birthday party. Now, I told you, and I think I've told our friends, our listeners, that I've gotten into laser tag. Not like your party laser tag, but the tactical laser tag with objectives, with realistic guns. And so for my boy's birthday, we did a joint birthday party at Battle House, this place called Battle House. And shout out to Battle House because it was a dope experience. We had 20 kids. We played some tactical combat and absolutely had a blast, Mac.
Nice.
So much fun. Lots of people running around. Headshots only is the way that they do it over there. And everyone from my younger daughters who are, oh man, how old are they, Mac? They're in 4th grade.
10?
They're 9 years old. Up to my oldest who are 13. Or who is about to be 13, and a bunch of their friends, and we just had a really good time. And I'm getting ready, Mac, to do their winter league. They have a winter league, and I'm super excited to play every single week and get better and better and have a blast. So it was a ton of fun.
Who would have thunk, Mr. Nice Guy, that you would be the cool laser tag dad? You know, I knew it. I believed in you.
I think a lot of people would have thought that, actually, just based on the things I like to do. And we had a couple other adults there too, so it was fun. Mac, enough about laser tag, enough about me. Tell me about your week.
You know, nothing too especially interesting. This last week was a little bit crazy. I work for a nonprofit organization out here on the coast, and we had our yearly fundraiser. So there was also, late nights. It's been a lot of work, a lot of effort, but now we can finally put it in the book, except for all of the back-end cleanup. Logistics, and of course, actual literal cleanup afterward. So still a lot of stuff to do, but it's nice to have it done, you know what I mean? And so it's nice to just be like, okay, now I can focus on the rest of the year stuff instead of focusing single on this just one thing. So kind of freeing in a way when you complete a big project. So I'm feeling good, and that was kind of the theme that dominated my week, the final event, and then now having, feeling like I can actually catch up on some of the work that had to go on the back burner. So it's good times.
Love it. Well, Mac, on that note, I say we do what we do best and hop right up in that gaming news, my friend. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. Mr. Nice Guy, what is new in video gaming, sir?
So much, and thanks again for everyone tuning in to episode 321 of Two Nerds in a Pod, nerdiest video game podcast in the galaxy. Those of you who are here live and those of you who are listening after the fact, appreciate each and every one of you. Mac, first news story is a big one, and it's the first time in video game history that we have seen this particular thing happen. This story comes from Kotaku, written by Zach Zweisen. He writes, The eclectic mix of stuff coming to Xbox Game Pass over the next few weeks includes some Call of Duty games, some nasty zombies, StarCraft, a South Park RPG, and a wonderful indie game about a growing hole. On October 15th, Xbox announced the second wave of games coming to Game Pass later this October. Sadly, not many spooky horror games are joining Game Pass this month, but following Xbox's acquisition of the publisher in 2023, a lot of Activision Blizzard titles are landing on their various tiers of Microsoft subscription gaming service. By far the biggest Activision game arriving on Game Pass this month is Call of Duty Black Ops 6 on October 25th. The latest entry in the long-running FPS franchise lands on Game Pass Ultimate and Game Pass PC. It'll be available to stream via the cloud too. Now, Mac, the reason that this is such a big deal is because this is the first time that Call of Duty at release has been put on Game Pass, a gaming subscription service. Some would argue that it's going to hurt physical sales. Some would argue that the publisher and devs and everyone who's involved are not going to make as much money. But now that Bobby Kotick is no longer the head of Activision, Microsoft is doing things this way. Obviously, we're going to ask you to hypothesize here. Wise move or bad move, given the behemoth that is Call of Duty?
No idea, man. It could go any number of the ways. We still don't know that much about how exactly game companies are compensated for Game Pass. Unless I've missed some stuff.
This is true.
Yeah, okay, good. Whew. Is this going to be more money? Is this going to be less money for Activision, now a wholly owned subsidiary of Microsoft? I don't know. It could be good. It could be bad. From a Microsoft standpoint, it's probably good news because it's going to convince yet more people to hop on Game Pass, which is definitely what they've been pushing. Now, I know that some people in this very community here have postulated that Microsoft wants to get out of the console business and that the Game Pass is the way to sort of speed that exit, so that so long as they've got their subscription service that you are tied into, to whatever, whether that's playing on your PCs or playing on potentially the next Xbox or two that they still decide to release. But after that, who knows? So
yeah.
I don't know, Mr. Nice Guy. What do you think? You're so much more read into this scene.
So, in terms of whether it's good or bad, I actually think this is a good move.
Good for whom?
Good for Microsoft. And honestly, I also think that it's probably good for Activision, and I'll tell you why. Games have long since been a one-time purchase. It's been a long time since you buy a game. That's the revenue that the company gets, and that's all that they get, especially with a game as service like a Call of Duty. And the reason why is because even back in 2010, when I was getting into Call of Duty with the original Black Ops, I bought the game. Every few months, they came out with a $15 DLC pack, and you could buy that. And so they had a constant stream of revenue for those who were really, really into the game. This is not going to stop because nowadays you get the Battle Pass. You get people who are really obsessed with skins. And earlier during the intro when I talked about my kid's birthday party, I can tell you the number one present that they got from their friends, from many, many of the people who were there, were V-Bucks for Fortnite because they all play Fortnite. They're into Fortnite. They want to buy the skins. They want to buy the Battle Pass. That's their thing. Call of Duty is similar. It's just a little bit more mature of an age group. There's a Battle Pass. There are skins. There are weapons that you can purchase within these packs. There's a lot of stuff. So making this game more accessible to people who are on Game Pass and may not be Call of Duty fans, but say, hey, I'm going to try it. If they get into it and they get hooked, it's like Microsoft is the drug dealer and these people are the addict. They're giving them a taste. Not a drug user myself, but just going with this analogy. Bear with me, y'all.
Sure.
They're giving them a taste. They're getting them hooked, and then they're going to come back for more. And so I think that it's good in that sense. And, of course, subscriptions increase for Microsoft.
I think, especially with video games that have had microtransactions in the past, those have proven to be a good continuous revenue stream.
Sure.
Even for games that otherwise you, say, bought once. I did cheat just a little bit and go looking for some figures, And at the very least, if I am to believe what I'm seeing from several of the games reports, that the overall revenue generated from the games industry was about 180 billion with a B dollars in, say, 2023, and the microtransactions were about 75 billion in 2023.
I'd believe it.
Which winds up being, not quite half, but also, more than a third, less than a half. And that's a pretty sizable chunk. 2 video games that wound up, specializing in microtransactions, all starting with a, set of horse armor, of course, back in the day. Thank you, Blizzard.
Yep.
All that being said, I don't know how much it moves the noodle, but I'll be interested to see what these numbers change as a result.
Here's the thing that I took from this too. You and I have always been on the same page in terms of physical media being important. And I'm starting to think that we may not be in the majority. Because candidly, if you're going to buy... Well, I mean, here's the thing. If someone's going to buy this game, Call of Duty, which historically has always been a behemoth, it has set records in entertainment, not just in video games, but in entertainment period, in terms of the amount of millions that have been sold. That has in the past been purchasing a physical disc or purchasing a digital version. So there's some level of ownership there. Now it's strictly downloading the game and having access to it. And once it leaves Game Pass, you no longer have access to it. We see every single month that there are games that leave Game Pass. And I can't help but think that just because Microsoft owns Activision, that they are not going to take Call of Duty off of Game Pass at some point.
See, I was going to ask, how many months do you think before they take it off Game Pass? And then be like, all right, so there's your taste. Now you can buy it for $49.95.
Yeah, or it's $69 at launch. But yeah, by that point, maybe it's discounted. I don't know, man. I would say 6 or 7 months because Call of Duty is an annual game. And so if they just wait a year and then take it off, then the new one is out and people may have moved on. But that said, they're also adding Modern Warfare 3, which is this year's Call of Duty, the one that's out now, to their Game Pass as well. And it's also going to be available on cloud gaming, and Warzone will be available via cloud gaming. So it's interesting, and I can only imagine how frustrated I would be if I purchased Call of Duty, or rather had it on Game Pass, bought a bunch of skins, bought battle passes, and then they said, hey, it's no longer available. I have to go out and buy it just to be able to still use the thing that I've invested all this money into. So Microsoft, I think, has a plan related to all of these things. And in that aspect, it's not going to benefit gamers. It's going to benefit their pocketbook, which is to be expected.
Hate to see it.
I could go on about this all day, but we have too much other stuff to talk about. Not so much a news story, but simply something that is going on right now is that Steam is having their Steam Next Fest right now, which for those who don't know, it's the third one of the year. For the uninitiated, it is a plethora of demos across the website that are available for you to try, that are available for you to wishlist, and that some of them are even available for you to leave a review of the demo itself rather than the actual game. Mac, the interesting thing about this to me is that a lot of these games are releasing in Q4. What do you think about the idea of around the timing of this? Having a Steam Next Fest in September for many games which will be releasing within the next 3 months. Is it enough time? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I haven't heard of some of these games till now.
In the sense that we have enough time, is there enough time for us to get hyped before the release?
Right, and for them to get their name out there. You know, with October being upon us, October being the first month in Q4, potentially these games releasing, let's say December. I don't know, man. I would have done it differently, but that's just me.
I think it could potentially be enough time to generate the hype, but how would you have done it?
I would have just put it out as soon as I knew the release date, if the demo was ready. You know, rather than waiting for a thing like Steam Next Fest, yes, it's going to get you more traffic. Yes, it's going to get you more promotion immediately. But people like you and me, people who own Steam Decks, people who have a lot of Steam games, are browsing the store on the regular, and they're finding stuff. And so I would have opened it up to that audience sooner, and maybe some of these games have, but many of them, I believe, have not. The cool thing about Steam Next Fest as a positive is that it results in a lot of gaming websites saying, here's the top 10 games that you've got to play during this 1 week period that is Steam Next Fest. So you get your name out there in that way. But if it was me, I'm not saying you need to kickstart it, but I'm just saying I would have gotten the demo up sooner.
Would the calculus be different if it wasn't such a brief window, if like the demo was just open from this point onward, do you think?
That's a good question, and I don't know that it would. Honestly, I think that some of these demos will probably continue to be available beyond the week. It's just that Steam Next Fest is only really going on to the 21st. So to me,
but 1 week.
That's the thing. To me, it's like this, man. There's people like us who started a podcast. We're not constantly promoting the podcast, but over the years we've built a following because we're putting it out there. Right? We're putting an episode up every week for the most part. Occasionally we do something like the podcast awards. But people have found us through various methods. Some of it's through Twitch, some of it's through YouTube, some of it's through podcast awards. Some of it's just by looking at Apple Podcasts or whatever it may be, or word of mouth. In order for you to really promote your game, I feel like you've just got to put it out there. Put the demo out there and just see who finds it. You get 10 people who find it, they each tell a friend. You're getting some more momentum than simply waiting to do it right before release. That's kind of how I feel about it.
It's all about that downstream.
It is. But to be positive, check out Steam Next Fest because there's a lot of dope stuff.
Yeah,
Mac.
Always is. And we find a lot of good stuff there. So yeah, check out Steam Next Fest. It will be worth your time.
Yeah, it was playing the precinct before the pod today. Seems like it's a solid game. Excited to play some more of it. Mac, one last news story. And, I'm asking you to hypothesize a lot today, right? We're thinking on our feet today. This one is from analog.com, and it's not really a news story, but more something that I and the Reddit community have noticed as I went to analog.com today to look at something. For those who don't know, Analog makes some great retro hardware, the Analog Pocket, the Super NT, and last year they announced an N64 3D console that they will be making. When I go to analog.com, Mac, and I look at the store is currently closed, even though they do have some of their hardware still in stock. And it says store opens on October 16th at 8 a.m. Pacific time. Now, some people think that it could be the new Nintendo 64 that's going to be released. Others think it could be a variant of the Analog Pocket. Still more think that it could be a completely new console. My question for you as a retro gamer is if you could pick what it was going to be that Analog would announce, whether it's a new Analog Pocket, whether it's an N64 console being priced with a release date, or whether it's something completely different for Mac's gaming sensibilities, what would you want to see from them at this point?
Ooh, such a good question. I'm afraid I don't really know. I would love to see... Actually, no, I take that back. I know what I would love to see. I would love to see more offerings of what they have in the past. So
yes,
I would love to see more options on the Game Boy, more options on the FPGA Nintendos, more of just all of those, because I feel like that's the big problem with Analog, is just that the stock level is never there and the price is so high. I would be okay with taking slightly less premium materials in order to still get a solid product, because they had the NES that was like done in aluminum, like the whole case was aluminum. I wouldn't mind plastic. Plastic's good enough for literally every gaming console that's ever been. I don't need an all aluminum game console for my retro gaming, but I do need something for my retro gaming. So yes, more of the same, but maybe even do what you can to chop the price down a little bit. That's what I'd love to see from Analog.
So I mostly agree. I disagree about the premium materials. I think that that's an option for people who just really, really want something solid that's not going to break. My Analog Pocket is not the aluminum one. That was $500. That's absolutely ridiculous. I have the plastic one.
How much was the plastic one?
The plastic one was $219, which is also a lot of money.
Cool. A lot of money, but way better than
500. Yeah, 100%. And I love it. I was using it earlier today. I use it a lot.
I think if you crunch the numbers, Lom, it's not 100%. It'd be 124%.
What do you mean? I didn't catch the joke there.
Just because it's like, it's like more than double the price.
Gotcha. Good book. I like that. Well done. I would actually like to see them re-release the regular Nintendo that they had made, the version of the Nintendo that plays NES games, because I have a lot of NES cartridges. I would love to just leave my NES from childhood alone. I replaced the pins. I would love for that to just sit there as a memory of how I got into gaming, but also have something that allows me to play all these cartridges, and that would be it. That has sold out. You can't really find them unless it's on eBay. We do not need more colors of the Analog Pocket. I'll tell you that. There's enough of those out there. So, Mac, for the sake of time, man, that's been our news for the week. We'll find out tomorrow what they're offering.
All right. Well, now that we've heard of some history in the making, let's turn to some history that already got made in this last week and years before. And Mr. Nice Guy, we start with some heavy hitters. The Orange Box, released for the PC in 2007, brought us Team Fortress, brought us
Portal,
Halo 2 Episode 2, and yes, of course, Portal.
Now, Mac, you just said Halo 2 Episode 2. I believe you meant to say Half-Life.
Yes, absolutely. Half-Life 2, not Halo 2. I've just got Microsoft on the brain today.
Right.
But yeah, I think of the Orange Box, Portal always has been and probably always will be my favorite of the trio. What about you, Mr. Nice Guy?
So yours is Portal?
Mm-hmm.
That's tough because I like Half-Life. It's definitely not going to be Half-Life. I would say that Portal is the most brilliant game on the thing. I would say in terms of replayability, I mean, it's a no-brainer that it's Team Fortress, simply because it's multiplayer. And I have actually, while we were living in Utah, I had a good friend of mine who was really into Team Fortress, and he would have some LAN parties occasionally. And we'd play Team Fortress on PC. And so that's a memory that I will always have, the PC version being much better than the Xbox version. But Orange Box, one of the best bangs for your buck on that console. I loved it.
Agreed. Fantastic value, even in comparison to today's offerings. Still fantastic. Let's see. Another couple interesting ones. One in 1998 for the PC, a point-and-click adventure game called Grim Fandango. I would say it was the end of an era, that it really closed out some of the best of the point-and-click. But good stuff. Grim Fandango, there was a remaster not that long ago. Well worth trying out if you like the point-and-click LucasArts style. Very good stuff. One that objectively... So I like to try and throw a couple out there, but also to try and end with what the biggest gaming, thing in history is. And objectively, from what historically... did things, changed things, was noteworthy about gaming came this week. But the one personally is there. So I'll start with what objectively is historically the biggest one, and that is the 1992 Sega CD release of Night Trap, a game where it had full motion video, and the point is that is basically kind of like a slasher film. There were people who were trying to capture these girls who were having a sleepover and like drain their blood like vampire style.
Very weird.
Yeah, it was very weird. It was an interesting premise. It was definitely high concept, and it was definitely an adult style game. But the point of the game was to stop that from happening. You were in basically control of the defensive systems of this whole house. And you were trying to prevent bad things from happening.
Sure.
Much in the same way that, like, in the, in the 80s, 90s and such, when people would be, like, on about Dungeons and Dragons, they'd be like, it's Satan's game. It's just like, really when you drill down to it, 9 times out of 10, you're like the good guys who are trying to stop evil from happening. Sure, there's like demons in Dungeons and Dragons, but like most of the time you're on a quest to go take them down.
Right.
And much in the same way, Night Trap kind of got that bad rap, but as a result, Night Trap winds up being involved in congressional hearings. There is so many people who are having conversations missing the mark. They hold up the Sega Genesis version of the Zapper called the Menacer, and things like that. It's the creation of the ESRB. Yes, Galvatron in the chat is way ahead of me. So much stuff gets the ball rolling, and Night Trap plays a front and center role. So yes, objectively, it's the thing. But for me, Mr. Nice Guy, personally, the most important thing happened in gaming this last week was in 2000 when we got the release of Pokemon Gold and Silver for the Game Boy Color, a worthy successor to Pokemon Red and Blue. Mr. Nice Guy, did you play Gold and Silver by chance?
I did not. I have the Blue, and I have Crystal, and I have a couple others, but never played Gold and Silver. I've established, Mac, that like I just have not played enough Pokemon.
Agreed.
And I have an analog pocket. There's no excuse. I've got to get one of them.
You do. You need to get on that. Well, I was so into Pokemon around the turn of the century that what we did is not only did we play Red and Blue, myself and my good pal across the street, but also he had lots more money than I did, so he paid to import the Japanese cartridges of Gold and Silver.
Was this like pre-internet or was this early internet? How did you even do that?
This was early internet. I don't know how he did it. I believe he like went on to like Yahoo, if I recall properly, had like bidding sites and such back in the day in the late 90s. It might have been from eBay. You know what? I'm going to have to reach out and find out exactly where he is and report back. But nonetheless, we got our hands on it. So in the early 2000s, so like probably, I don't know, maybe May, June, we got Gold and Silver in Japanese, and we had our little things. We were keeping track of moves, saving before every battle, so that when a Pokemon learned a new move and we didn't know what it did, we could like learn it and then try it out and be like, oh gosh, that did nothing. So it was very difficult to realize that something was like a status effect or whatever. So just went for full on damage. But we beat the game. And so in October, when Pokemon Gold and Silver finally arrives in the US shores, sure, we get our copies, but it was kind of, everybody else was excited, and we had already been there, done that. But while it's not the North American release of Gold and Silver that holds a special place in my heart, still, the Japanese release taught me just enough, I guess, 8-bit style Japanese characters to know what indicates street names and trainers and Pokemon and all sorts of fun things like that. But yeah, for me, even though it's Night Trap, for me it's definitely Pokemon Gold and Silver for history.
Love it, love it, love it, love it. Well, Mac and friends, it's time for our next segment, a segment we like to call Indie Game of the Week.
Woo!
A segment where we talk about a game that may deserve more attention and let you know if it deserves your attention. And Mac, if I'm not mistaken, this week we're talking about a game called Iron Meat. Here's the description, and we'll talk about what we think about it. First off, Iron Meat, developed by Ivan Valerievich Suvorov and Retroware, published by Retroware, released September 25th of 2024. Here is the description on Steam. Iron Meat is a run-and-gun arcade shooter that immerses players in an apocalyptic future overrun by, quote-unquote, the meat, an iron-ravenous mass mutating everything in its path. Blast your way through retro-inspired stages and bosses to uncover the shocking horrors behind secret experiments on the moon. It's tagged as a shoot-'em-up, side-scroller, and platformer. Currently sits at very positive 97% on Steam, with 402 reviews. Priced at $19.99. As always, Mac, we did receive codes for this game from the developers, but it will not influence our opinion. Mac, what did you think about Iron Meat?
It's not every game that can be both a run-and-gun shooter as well as a unique literary masterpiece. Something that really makes you think, shows to you the weaknesses in your own system of thought, governance, and everything.
Stop it.
Yeah, no, this is just a straightforward, do you want Contra? This is how you get Contra. Contra, Gunstar Heroes, Metal Slug.
Yeah.
This has the vibe. If you've played those games, you've kind of played this. But this felt nice. It felt fresh. It felt enjoyable. There was no bigger narrative. I mean, you know, you're on the moon at some point in time. How, you know, it's just like good, solid stuff. And I believe Retroware is the publisher on this one. And Retroware has published a lot of stuff that has these sorts of homage and good, solid gameplay experiences. Something like Prison City that we got last year, same publisher. Even though that was very much sort of a slightly more modern take on something like Shatterhand.
Yep.
This one, of course, a bit better on Contra. Now, I have not been super into the Contra scene, so for me, it very much evoked a lot more what was I thinking? A lot more Gunstar Heroes vibes for me.
Okay.
But I found that a lot of people in their discussion of Iron Meat, they did a lot more comparing of it to Contra, particularly things like, you know, you have lives, you take a hit, you die, you lose your power-up, you gotta get those again, you know, that's a very Contra thing, but of course it's present in a lot of the run-and-guns. So yeah, that's kind of, I had a blast. Pun intended.
Pun intended. So here's my thoughts on Iron Meat. I don't really have anything negative to say, but I don't have anything overly positive to say either.
Okay.
The thing about this game is that, yes, it is very much like Contra. And if I was thinking of a Contra to compare it to, like Contra 3 Alien Wars on the Super Nintendo, it definitely gives me, it gives me those type of vibes. Like the backgrounds look really good. It's more. Let me rephrase that. The Contra on NES, very simplistic compared to this one. This one has the graphical fidelity that you'd expect for a Contra being made today. It has a lot of the mechanics that you know from Contra, where you can get upgrades to your guns, and because of this being a more modern version, you can actually have two different upgrades at once, much like you can in Contra 3 The Alien Wars. One thing that they also have in this game, you can upgrade your... I don't know if that's what you were going to say, Mac. You could upgrade your gun. So if you get the same upgrade twice, it gives you a more powerful version, which I thought was a nice mechanic. This, to me, doesn't do anything unique or better than Contra. It's a Steam game, so it has achievements, as it should. There are skins that you can unlock. There's not really, at least as far as I could tell, any secrets or anything that makes it different than your typical run and gun. But I played it without bugs. I played it on the Steam Deck. I had a good time, and I beat it in a couple hours. I don't know. Did you finish the game, Mac?
I mean, it took me a little bit longer because I'm not as good at games as you are. But
what do you think about the replayability? Like replayability here? Are you going to go back to this and try to get achievements, or like what do you think about this game in terms of longevity?
So I'm going to go back and try to get more achievements because I kind of like doing that. But there comes a point in time, for me, there's always a point in time, a tapping out point, where I'm just like, okay, you know what? I'm not going to do that. But in a game that has short play periods, I tend to, especially if it's something like, if it's not something silly like get through the game without dying, that's right out. But anything sort of short of that, then yeah, I'll give it another go for the achievements. But, you know, I'll tell you what, I'll go back for the political intrigue in Iron Meat. That'll keep me coming back time after time.
And once again, I don't really have anything bad to say about this game.
Sure.
It's a well-made game. It runs very well on the Steam Deck. That's how I played it. Did you use the Steam Deck?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, I guess the only real criticism that I have of this game, and I don't necessarily wish that there were more levels, because I think that they had the right amount. I have some really strong reservations about this being a $20 game. And for context, Prison City, which we played last year, I feel like was longer, had more depth, much more depth, and that game is $9.99 full price. So even just comparing it to another game made by the same developer, I'm very curious why they made this one $20. I don't think that it's
different
justified.
developer, same publisher.
Correct. Same publisher, different developer. That's true. But I just think that pricing things relative to what you've put out in the past or what you've published in the past is important. And that's my main criticism of the game.
Yeah, that's the negative that I have to offer, is that at $20, this doesn't give quite as much political intrigue as I would need in order to play it that many more times. Yeah, I'm going to make a third joke about it. But but yeah, it was a good game, a pleasant experience. I think it is overpriced for what you got, though.
Yeah.
That is very fair.
But hey, as far as a pick up and play, if you're on a plane or you want something where you're sitting around on your lunch break and you just want to shoot some aliens, excellently done for that. Mac, what did you rate this one on the Two Nerds scale, my friend?
Well, it's a fantastic and enjoyable game. But yeah, it's too expensive. It needs to be being sold for closer to 10, frankly. So I'd say 4 out of 5. The price is the biggest thing that's holding it back, but it was enjoyable. It was fun, and I'm glad to have a solid run and gun indie to enjoy this year.
Yeah, I have to rate this based on, is it a good game and is it a game I would recommend? Not am I frustrated by the fact that it doesn't innovate. Although I will knock points because it didn't innovate. And if I wanted to play this, I could always emulate or go play a physical copy of Contra Alien Wars and have the same level of fun. So for that reason, I gave this a 3.5. To me, this is not... I was actually on the fence between 3 and 3.5. Because it is well made and because it runs smooth and I had fun, I gave it a 3.5. So anyway... that has been Indie Game of the Week.
All right. Well, now let's turn to a crowdfunding project that's trying to get off of the ground. This is a game that may or may not surprise and impress us. We call this Kick or Kickstart. These crowdfunding projects, we take a look at them. I share them with Lam here on the night for the first time. We take a look, discuss the virtues and the vices, and then say whether or not it should be kicked out of here or kick-started. This is a game called Reverse Defense. It's from Poloman Games out of Krakow, Poland, and it is their first Kickstarter, although it looks like this company has done a little bit of past video game work, and by that, the only one I could find on their website was just a single educational web game about the Polish power grid. So, yeah, so that doesn't... But hey, everybody gets their start somewhere. So they're looking for $11 minimum buy-in for a copy of the game, which they expect to sell at launch for $15, so it's a good price point. Higher levels of Kickstarter support would give you, say, design consulting on a card or a map for the game. And delivery is going to be in May 2025, so about 7 months out from launch, with a $13,000 funding goal, which is lower than we tend to see on a lot of these. But at its heart, Reverse Defense is kind of what it sounds. It's a reverse tower defense style game. I guess the storyline behind it is that you're somebody who's been dealing with a lot of tower defending of your own property, and you're like, you know what? Time to take it to you guys. So you head out as a powerful wizard, leading your waves of creatures to go forward. A sort of, oh gosh, what was it? There was a game called Dungeon Defenders that had a sort of...
Dungeon Defenders, dude. That's exactly what I thought when I saw this.
Yeah, and so, but imagine if instead of having the dungeon defenders, it was the dungeon attackers, where you've got that similar sort of, you've got not only the waves, but you've also got, you're also a boots on the ground at the same time, able to, say, throw down spells or give some buffs. Additionally, because these folks seem to be a fan of the type of deck building strategy stuff that we see in various games. I feel like it's very in vogue lately. But there is that sort of deck building stuff thrown in, where over time you'll get new cards. This seems like it's going to influence your spell book, what power-ups and things you'll have access to in the moment, and what kinds of units and other effects will be. So you'll get a chance to kind of prep your deck, prep your strategy, get ready, and then go in first-person real-time mode to kind of destroy the other kingdoms. Now, there are some visuals that you've probably seen by now, and they do say that their biggest goal in the kickstarting process is not really to fund bigger, better graphics. They like the sort of somewhat low polygon style that they've gone for in this, and that's not, it's not a, you know, a work in progress thing. That is how the art is meant to be through this.
Sure.
They want it like that. They're going for a style, and yeah, so that is Reverse Defense. Mr. Nice Guy, any observations or thoughts?
So what I will say about this one, and I just browsed the video as you were talking, is before you judge this Kickstarter based on how much they've raised or based on what the initial response looks like, watch the video, because the video looks awesome. And it definitely gave me Dungeon Defenders vibes. You know, quick story, back in the day I had a couple online buddies. I still have many online buddies, but I had a couple in particular. We would play a bunch of different games, Splinter Cell and all types of stuff, and one of them said, hey, let's try Dungeon Defenders. It's like $10, let's all buy it, we'll play. For a few Friday nights, we just had a blast playing Dungeon Defenders. Yeah. And it's a really good game, and this brings back those memories, so I'm excited to see what they do with this. $11, phenomenal price for a game like this. And Mac, do we know if this has co-op? I missed that if you said that it does.
I don't know if it has co-op. I haven't seen that listed anywhere in it. Maybe in stretch goals?
No, I was just curious. It's not a deal breaker either way.
In the stretch goals, if they do make it to 200,000, they are looking at a co-op mode.
Okay.
At 250,000, they're looking for a console release at that point.
Oh, 250,000. Wow. And they're $13,000 goal. So that's a huge stretch. Well, you know, one thing about this, it's really not as unique an idea as they're pitching it to be, but I like the marketing of saying reverse dungeon defense. You think about if you've ever played like a League of Legends or any type of MOBA like that, where you're trying to get over to the enemy side, there are often towers that you have to go through. Before you can do it. You have to beat some creeps, some NPCs basically, and then there's towers that you try not to get hit by, and that hopefully your creeps can take out. So this is just that in 3D.
Yeah.
I like that they're branding it this way, and there's not a lot that I have to say bad about this. It looks awesome.
Yeah, same here. I think what I'm most surprised by is that, you know, it's a little chunk of the way into the funding. It hasn't gotten over the hurdles that I think it probably should, and it has a lot of positive things going for it. I'm confused, I will say, more than anything else, because this looks like it is going to be good. And even more so than that, it includes a playable demo as an option. If you want to give it a shot and try it out, you can. So I don't know what's holding this project back, but I like the looks of it. I like what they're pitching, and yeah, it reminds me of Dungeon Defenders, and I too have a lot of positive memories of that time and that game, and this feels like something that will scratch the same itch, so I'm all in, personally. And I don't know if... I think I'm ready to just say it. I would say kickstart. And I'd drop my $11 on this.
Yeah, I'll say kickstart too. Here's something super interesting. I just looked to see if this is available on Steam, and it is. And it has the Steam Next Fest badge at the top, so I assume that it's part of that. And the demo's available on Steam. So once again, Steam Next Fest, awesome. Put your demos out well in advance of Steam Next Fest if you're an indie. Hopefully they get a bump to their Kickstarter as a result, but just based on the funding they have so far, Steam Next Fest isn't really helping them that much. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But I say kickstart.
Yeah. Same here. We wish everybody the best. We hope that Polyman Games is able to pull through on this, because we would love to see a game like Reverse Defense. And if you're interested at all, that demo, go find it, give it a shot, and if it's of interest to you, $11 is not a lot in order to get, in order to get any game, much less a game that looks like it's got this kind of quality.
Well, cool. Moving on to Nerdflex. Woohoo! A segment where you, the viewers, try to stump the host. Sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't. Well, let's just dive right in. We all know how this works. Mac and I answer multiple choice questions, either from the chat or from the test bank of questions. Sometimes we get a question that is not multiple choice, and we answer it anyway, using nothing but our noggins. No phoning a friend, no Google, no none of that. So, Mac, first question from the test bank. This one is a purple one, which means it's a special round.
Woo-woo!
And I think we'll answer this easily, but it'll be fun to reminisce. Name 2 good boys, in parentheses, dogs in games. So name 2 dogs in games.
Okay, I got one.
I know the one you're going to say. Go ahead.
Oh, what's the one I'm going to say?
You're going to say the one from Mega Man.
Rush?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that not what you were going to say?
Yeah, no, you're 100%. You got me.
I gotcha. Here's one, and I don't know if it's cheating. Nintendogs.
Ooh.
Does that count?
Well, they are dogs, and it is a video game. I've lately been playing Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, and there is a dog in that. His name's Rudy. Also, Baldur's Gate 3 has a dog named Scratch. Oh, there's Dog Meat from Fallout.
Yeah, dog meat. Perfect. You got it, dude. And I'm trying to think of other games that had dogs. Or wolves, even. Wolves are technically a type of dog, right?
Yeah.
You could turn into a
Dogs,
wolf in Diablo.
wolves,
but
dogs.
I don't know what his name was or her name. So those are the ones that come to mind immediately.
Yeah, same.
The dogs from Call of Duty in Black Ops when you call in the dogs. They probably don't count.
Yeah, probably don't have names. Oh,
Yeah,
Rocket and Jojo are the name of at least 2 dogs in Resident Evil 2. When you walk past the kennels in Resident Evil 2, you can just make out a couple of the names, Rocket and Jojo, and then of course once you walk past them, then the cages open and the zombie dogs come out. So yeah, we got those ones as well.
Dude, there's got to be so many that we're forgetting right now, because there's a lot of games where you have a dog companion, and the dog doesn't play a huge role in the game.
Yeah. Oh, in Final Fantasy VIII, Renoa's dog companion's named Angelo.
Okay. Mac, you know a lot about dogs in video games. I like it. Well, cool. For the sake of time, that is a lot. Here's what we've got. So the first one on there is dog meat.
Nice.
Amaterasu
from Okami. Although I thought he was a wolf, not a dog. But hey, I guess wolves are dogs.
Wolves, like I said, wolves are dogs. Angelo, Chop, Poochie, Rex, Rufus, and Sam are the dogs that are listed here. I wish it put the games in parentheses.
Oh, Sam from Sam and Max. That's a good one.
There's a lot of dogs in games.
Indeed.
Well, cool. Mac, we're going to keep things moving along.
Let me go ahead and interject with a question from Galvatron, who asks, which character from an Aliens or Predator movie is in the Aliens vs. Predator arcade game? Is it Ellen Ripley, Alan Dutch Schaefer, Mike Harrigan, Royce, or Naru?
That is in the game?
In an Aliens or a Predator movie, but that features in the Aliens vs. Predator arcade game. Now, I've never played Aliens vs. Predator arcade.
Me neither. And if I have, it's been so long that I forgot. First Instinct is Royce. First Instinct is Royce. But that's just a random guess.
I mean, I'm willing to go with you on that. Just a shot in the dark anyway for me. Let's go. Let's double down. Royce, final answer.
Royce, final answer. Galvatron, let us know in the chat if that is correct. He didn't give us like 10 answers this time, which is very generous of him. He often gives us a lot.
Indeed, yeah. He says it's Dutch. Dutch was the correct answer. And I guess that makes sense. That would be kind of the biggest name in those, I suppose. Although Ellen Ripley was pretty awesome. Whether, especially in Aliens, because she's all battle-hardened by that point in time.
There you go. Well, one last question, Mac. This is a Mario question.
Ooh.
Who sang I Ride with Bananas and Shells like Mario and Luigi? Who sang I Ride with Bananas and Shells like Mario and Luigi?
I'm gonna say Sir Mix-a-Lot.
I'm going to say no. That's probably not who it is.
Probably not.
But it could be someone old school. I mean, it obviously would have to be after...
Okay, Snoop.
Yeah, it could be Snoop. Except this doesn't rhyme. I'm going to go with...
Yeah, who's somebody who doesn't rhyme?
Oh, so here's the thing. It's a reference to guns, which I didn't get at first.
Okay,
But
okay.
bananas, like banana clips, and shells,
Sure.
like the shells that come. Like I ride with bananas and shells, like Mario and Luigi.
Do
so
you
it's
think
probably
it's somebody
hip-hop.
cringy like Eminem?
No, it's not Eminem. And Eminem's not cringy. He's a legend. What are you talking about? Hip-hop legend.
Kind of cringy to me.
Well, regardless of Mac's musical taste, this is probably a hip-hop reference. And someone who's also into video games now, or at least knows minimal things about video games. I am going to lean towards, just because I used to be a big fan, and still am kind of a fan of this rapper. He raps about video games sometimes. Lupe Fiasco. He makes a lot of like Street Fighter 2 references and stuff, and fighting game references. I feel like I'd know this line if it was from him, but I'm still going to go with Lupe Fiasco.
And I'll go with Snoop.
All right, final answers. Let's see who it is. Okay, it's actually another rapper, Chameleonaire.
Chameleonaire. Okay.
Yeah.
I would have never guessed. I haven't thought about him in ages, but
You see me rolling.
still that's cool. They hating. They roll in their ass because I'm so white and nerdy.
That has been Nerdflex for the week.
All right. Well, now we turn to a little bit of legalese.
Legalese.
The whitest and nerdiest thing that could possibly be a part of your podcast this evening. A little bit of an update, I guess you could say, about some movement on a thing. So, way back in the day, we talked about a little merger of a small game company, Activision Blizzard, and Microsoft. This merger, obviously, probably nobody's ever heard of it naturally, but we talked about it plenty. That is funny because we talked about it just earlier in the show. Point is, we talked about it back when it was first happening, when the FTC raised its initial objections, and we also talked about it when some gamers filed suit. Just a couple of weeks after the FTC voiced its concerns over the merger, several gamers in several different states, they as a group filed suit in 2022, and that suit failed to get traction. It was very much, it had a lot of similar themes to the FTC's concerns, but they were bringing it as individual citizens saying, hey, we think this merger is going to have a negative impact on us. And on their first try, they weren't able to really get the complaint across the finish line. The judge basically dismissed it for lack of sufficient evidence to support the claims in the initial complaint, which would give them the wherewithal to press forward. It not surviving a motion to dismiss, but they were given a window back in 2020 2023, I believe, when it had that dismissal, they were given a window of 20 days to file an amended complaint and shore up their argument, which they did. And at that point in time, it was ongoing, but very much under the radar. Those of you who haven't noticed or weren't paying attention to Mr. Nice Guy's fantastic video game news earlier in this very episode, the Activision Blizzard Microsoft merger very much has gone forward and has passed the point at which people could truly object. So
technicality, I think we'd call it an acquisition. Like, just to be clear, more than a merger, an acquisition. Yeah. Yep. But yeah, go ahead.
No, roger that. That's fair. So, all that being said, though, why on earth would we bother even thinking about this when it's so far gone? I certainly wouldn't. But, nonetheless, some interestingness is that Microsoft has agreed to settle the suit. Both parties have agreed to a settlement. And as part of the settlement, they've agreed to dismiss it with prejudice, so that means that this is the end of the line for it. In dismissing it with prejudice, there is no ability to refile this in the future. Without prejudice, can refile. With prejudice, you can't. But what we don't know, and what we never know from settlements, and one of the reasons why Mac hates settlements so much, is that we never find out the stunning conclusion. We also rarely, if ever, know what the terms of the settlement were. Rarely do we find out the terms of a settlement, and that's why Mac hates settlements so much. Because who knows? They might have been sitting on some real damning evidence of Microsoft, what their plans were, what their diabolical schemes were, but we would never know because this dies. Now, do I think they've got bombshell stuff?
Company emails.
Yeah, company emails. Do I think they have any bombshells? Probably not. But at the very least, they were making enough of a ruckus, enough problems, that Microsoft decided it was time to just buy them out. And that's where we find ourselves here. So whatever stuff was going on, we'll probably never know. But that's at least one less thing that Microsoft has to worry about going forward. And that's just some little legalese for you.
Nice. Love it, love it, love it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thanks for tuning in to episode 321 of Two Nerds in a Pod, nerdiest video game podcast in the galaxy. Before we go, we have one last thing to talk about, and that's what we've been watching and what we've been playing. You know how it works. It's exactly that. Tell us what you've been watching and playing, and we'll tell you. If you're here live, let us know in the chat, or tweet at us, email us later. Mac, what you been watching and playing?
Well, for watching, I've mostly been watching some Dimension 20 shows and also a little bit of the newest season of Taskmaster. So, been enjoying the British game show. As for playing, though, I've been playing some Creeper World, Creeper World 4 specifically, some Iron Meat, obviously, a little bit of Baldur's Gate, and 2 heaping tablespoons of Lorelei and the Laser Eyes. I'm approaching the end of the game, and you know, I think it's the type of game that I'm going to play again just so that I can go back and, like, really pay more attention to the story in the background and not quite so much direct attention to figuring out the puzzles, because there's a lot of puzzles, and even though there is some replayability because they shuffle the puzzle solutions around, there is certainly a lot of stuff where I feel like I spend a lot of my brain power focusing on the puzzles that I wind up missing out, or, you know, really not giving the story things. And it's kind of psychedelic in its story, so, you know, it's a little hard to disjointed and hard to follow sometimes. So sure. I'm probably going to play it again just to kind of drill down on what really is going on in this abandoned hotel in the middle of the German countryside.
Love it. As far as watching, we're still doing the MCU run through with my oldest son.
Oh, nice. Where are you at now?
Yeah, we just finished Iron Man 3 today. So next up is Guardians of the Galaxy, and it's interesting, Mac. Some of these movies I either haven't seen since the first time I watched them when they came out, or I just only watched them once and maybe even fell asleep. So it's like watching these movies for the first time. So it's been a dope experience to go through them and see my son get super hyped for these movies. So that is a thing. Tons of YouTube, video game collecting stuff, barbecue stuff, the typical stuff. And also, Mac, been watching a lot of like laser tag league videos. Like, this is my new obsession. Is the tactical laser tag. So I've been having fun researching different techniques and things like that on YouTube and on TikTok. As far as playing, I've been playing a little bit of Modern Warfare 3 and Warzone in preparation for Black Ops 6, just trying to get my fast twitch muscles back in my fingers. And then, of course, the indies that we have been reviewing, some of which I don't want to name just yet. And I think that's pretty much it. So that's it for me.
Nice. Thank you very much for coming out to the show. We appreciate all of you being here. Thank you for sharing your opinions in the chat, the cool, nerdy things that you yourselves are into. We hope that you'll join us, whether this is listening to the show after the fact or being here live at twitch.tv/2nerdsinthepod to let us know what you think about the things we are chatting about each Tuesday at 7 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Central. But until we see each other again and hang out, be excellent to each other, and keep it nerdy, y'all.
Deuces. Video games are art. See ya.
Bye.